Hey guys, Daniel James here, and today we're going to be taking a look at Rhodope, which is Strezov Sampling's ethnic Bulgarian choir sample library. The way we're going to do this, same way we always do, is I've written a track in the background which uses the library, and then what we'll do is we'll listen to that first, then go into which bits of the library I used, why I used it, and then I'll show you the library in a bit more depth. So without further ado, let's take a listen to the track. So there's the short track I wrote, and as you can tell, I went with my usual kind of big, epic action things. Worth noting that when I do these videos, I do them how I would use them in context. So, you know, that's why that is. Okay, so what is Rhodope? Let's start there. So Rhodope is, like I mentioned at the beginning, it's an ethnic Bulgarian choir. Now, I know there'll be people watching this who don't know the difference between a regular choir and a Bulgarian choir, other than the obvious fact that the Bulgarian choir is from Bulgaria. So the main difference is in the tone, the way the singers sing the notes. The Bulgarian choir, I guess you could say, is more nasally. If we take a listen while I talk, so if I just play like some big open block chords with them. Oh, we're still pitch shifted from the crazy bit. Hang on. There we go. So it's a lot more nasally kind of sound. So the way that the singers actually sing is very kind of distinct, and you know, this is a very kind of sought after sound. It's very unique, which is what makes this type of choir, you know, quite desirable. And I've been waiting for a Bulgarian choir for years. I think there was a soundtrack, I forget the composer, but it was for a video game called Alone in the Dark, and it had Bulgarian choirs in it. And it's just that it's a very otherworldly type sound, you know. It's just so different that it adds like a completely otherworldly feel to a piece of music. So let's take a look at the UI. I must admit, when I first got the library, it confused me. Like I always mention that when I do these videos, I like to just, you know, load up the library and see how I can figure it out. And at first, the first time I looked at this, it didn't make very much sense. But luckily, I mean, they actually added a help section to the library, so I guess they could kind of see this coming. But so this library works a little bit differently to most choir libraries. In most choir libraries, you get like phrases, you know, like ra, cha, sunk, tus, you know, like that very Latin-y kind of thing. And then you can play through the different phrases, or you'll get ah and e and e. Whereas this one does it a little bit different. This one has a word builder. There was a choir library that did something like this before called East-West Symphonic Choirs, I think it was. but it did it completely differently. So let's take a look at how it actually works. So as you can see here, I've written words that don't really make any sense. And I'll go into why I went with these words as opposed to other ones later. But if you look, I've written, it's phonetic, so it's mi shebo, right? So if you listen, it's sorry, I should have said me shibo. And that's one of the cool things. You can write words. So, you know, let's try writing a profanity. Oh, that's one thing that bothers me. So to write a word, what you do is you see these little boxes here. What you want to do is you want to start a word after a gap. I think you can put in one of these lines as well. And the way you do it, like I just did then, is you go to one of the boxes and you have to kind of do it in the upper corner of the box. If you do it at the bottom, you end up grabbing the whole patch. But you grab the top and you lift your mouse up and down and you get a word. So let's, you know, because I have the mind of a 12-year-old, so I guess we could just put a K. You know, so we can. Oh, that will never get old. So as you heard, that went fook. But you see, you can write your own words just by dragging in, you know, by dragging the actual sounds. Each one has its own sound. I'm going to do this actually on a separate patch so that I'm not messing with this top one. So I've got one set up down here. Number 3. So if we take a look at the top here, you see that there's loads of things here, so it's going to be hard for me to write a new word. All I have to do is click the new button and it resets it nicely for me. So let's try writing a word. So let's just put my name and see what it sounds like. Danielu. Now, as you hear, it goes through it very quick. And one of the things they did to like alleviate this, which is actually kind of cool, is underneath each letter you have a timing. So what you do is you click on that and you can actually drag how long that particular syllable plays for. So now it'll go. So let's make this one last a bit longer. So now it goes Daniel. But you have to think about it phonetically. So, you know, phonetically, Daniel isn't spelt like this. I'm not actually kind of sure how it is, but let's try writing a word. So da, n. So it'd be an E. Dania. No, Danya. I guess Y. There is no Y. Y. I need a Y. Let's go with. You can get away with that. But yeah, so you can kind of create words. One of the things I wish they'd have added is like presets. So how I mentioned at the beginning that this library is different from like having your preset syllables like sanctus, ri, a, be, che, you know, like words that are already pre-designed, because you can kind of put together words that sound like words. Whereas this library has like a weird kind of, I mean, it sounds great and all, but it's like when you find combinations that don't particularly work, you get a very kind of nasty, how do I put it? It's like the release times on each note is gabble. I don't know. There's a word. That one actually works quite well. That came out a lot different than I expected it would, that sound. It's kind of a cool one. Gable, that came out as. Gably. So you get a kind of, what's the word? So I know there's one up here that does it a little bit weird. let's just put D. So that ta, it's got a very kind of sharp edge, and it's I mean, like, there's better examples. I'm sure I'll find some in a minute, but it kind of, when you hold the note down, you get a very unnatural kind of air. Or let me turn off the effects I've got on here, by the way, so you can hear it dry. It's a lot more pronounced when it's. And it almost feels like you need to change the release times of the overall kind of like of all the words. I know they did add, so if I think it's shift right click allows you to change the release time. So if I change the release time of the d and apply that, it gets rid of it a little bit, but it's still kind of there. Also, the attack of that is quite aggressive. Maybe we can soften it. Maybe it's the release of this one that I need to move. So yeah, you can come into each one and adjust it. So you see there, by adjusting the release time of the E, it made it a lot more. Whereas if you adjust the release time on that, so what you need to do really, I'll show you what these do in a second. Hang on. So the sh needs a bit more edge. Just trying to make it tidy. And I'm going to change. So this D, like, you can't change the timing of it. So essentially, ones without timing are just adding. I'll show you on the bottom one again. They're adding like just a slight subtle sound. So I'll pick one here, like, or the D. They're just, so when you're writing words, it's worth keeping in mind which ones kind of fill out better. So this is me shido with a D. And then if I change it to a B, it's got less of an attack. B. Maybe I'll change it to one that's got a timing. Which isn't actually that bad. This library comes very dry, so I definitely recommend putting reverb on it. So if I play that again, that F, that's probably because I've put a lot of release time on it. So if I bring that down, you still get a little bit, but if you put the reverb on it, that will disappear, I think. It's a lot more clean, and delay also helps, and it adds to, you know, getting that kind of sound. So that's one of the cool things. As you can see here in the track, I had this kind of this rhythm on the brass, which was doing something like this. Bum, 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 bum. And what I had to do with the rhythm in Rhodope is I wanted to work the syllables around it. And when I first got the library, the first thing I was doing was just putting like an R like this. I'll put a solo on this. Like, I was just doing that, and then, you know, having a different syllable over here. So it was like, make that an E. Well, this would be a good time to show you some of the options. So, as you can hear, I'm pushing the keys, and it's just doing the R when I've got an E there. So, the way you change this, you come over to the legato and non-legato section. So, if I increase the gap, that means within this time, if another key's pushed, it'll trigger the next note. Same with the chord if you're playing chords. You hear how that's changing. I think if I increase this and then move this down. So you can achieve like held kind of notes. And then if you want to go to the non-legato, you can change it. So I'll just do it down here so you can see. If I turn off the overlapping notes. So the legato mode, you've got more of a... all in all, I mean, like, the controls are useful, but to me, they're slightly confusing. Because, like, sometimes they do what I want them to do, sometimes they don't. And then, anyway, so you have, like, the release time here, which is, you know... doesn't seem to change that much. The mouse sensitivity is for how much it changes the... Oh, not that button. How much it changes the note when you go through it. So, I mean, like, it's useful for, like, holding down one note. You know, so you can change through the things. Depth module, I'm not particularly sure what it does, but we'll have a go. Oh, it's the reverb. Reverb would have been a useful name. So I imagine dry and wet. This is something that's always like bugged me from a user standpoint, is when you have a control that doesn't have a label. So, like, I'm pretty sure this is the dry control, this is the wet control, but, like, without experimenting, then I wasn't able to see. And again, so, like, on the help page, you get the credits and, you know, the hint page, so it tells you how to use the certain things. But I'm a firm believer that, you know, when you load it up, it should make sense, but, you know, it's not always the biggest sin in the world, so long as the, you know, what you get out of it is good. But yeah, like I say, I hope they bring syllables to it. So like I was saying, sorry, back to my point. So the brass is doing this line. And particularly that second part of the phrase, the bum bum bum. So the first part of my phrase, as you noticed, goes like this. So I wanted the second half of the syllables to come in with the horn. So it's me, she, bum, bum. So if you listen to that. And then with the bum, 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 I wanted it to say the next word along with the horn. So it should technically go with it. I need to adjust the gap. Sorry, I changed that earlier. So you see, what I've done here with the words is I've extended the syllables using that technique, and I've timed it with, well, as close as I wanted to with the phrase, which is where this library is very useful. So if you've got the sanctus, ra, you know, those types of libraries, if there's a syllable that's slightly longer, you know, you'll have to switch it out for one that's got better timing or more appropriate timing. So because like if you were doing sanctus and you finish, you might get a sank, you know, you might get like a little bit of the note if you change before it's finished playing that syllable. Whereas this is where this user interface comes into its own, you know, timing wise, because you can get rhythmic with it, you know, so. said, because you sometimes get that sound when you pick syllables that don't necessarily blend too well, you know, you get weird words like godefa and meshifo, riketu. They sound like they could be words from another language. It would probably help if I was to, you know, learn the Bulgarian language, which I don't know. But yeah, so you can, you know, words that sound phonetically more nice, I guess is the best word for it. The ones that sound smoothest together are the ones that are normally better to go for, because you know, if you're picking words, even though it may be saying the word you want, if the syllables don't blend, it might pull you out of the you know, out of the song. You know, because you'll be noticing on the unnaturalness of it. But like, you can get pretty close. I mean, samzebo sounds like a word. Kimetu, it sounds like it could be a foreign language. So at this point in the track, I wanted like a weird kind of, you know, like otherworldly type sound. So what I did is I just pitch shifted it. And there's nothing weirder sounding to a human than a human voice being pitch shifted. That's one of the hardest things with any sample library. You know, depending on the complexity of the instrument, you know, the more complex the instrument, the harder it's going to be to make it sound, in air quotes, real when you sample it. So, you know, a lot of the times you can, you know, be stylish with it. You know, you can cover the rough edges, you know, with a bit of style, or, you know, a technique that wouldn't work real but makes it sound good in samples. Whenever you make a voice, a sample library based on the human voice, you're almost fighting an uphill battle, because, you know, we're trained naturally to notice things wrong with humans. So if the human voice is even slightly off, like the when it was going mi shik oh, you know, that instantly stands out to us, because that's very unnatural. We know what the human voice does and what it's supposed to sound like better than any other instrument that exists. So, you know, you're always going to struggle to you know, do a vocal sample library. That's where the things like reverb and that come in handy. So yeah, I wanted like this otherworldly sound, and you know, this choir lends itself to otherworldly already, but nothing makes it sound weirder than the human voice being pitch shifted. So I just, you know, got some short kind of, which I think works quite nicely with the rhythm. So as you can see, it's you know, it's got a very good use for you know, for like I mentioned, layering with rhythms and, you know, building words. One of the other things I didn't mention here is the so you can insert instruments like that, like this. I'm not quite sure what it's doing, but oh, that's it. You can nudge it to the right or to the left. Well, not to the left. You can nudge it to the right, and you can also delete with this button like that, or you can just drag it all the way down. But no, what I was going to mention is that you can save and you can load your presets. So if I click load here, you know, it'll bring up the old, you know, it'll bring up the thingamajig. And let's load one of theirs. She is a stone. So you see, it's instantly filled my thing, which saves me a lot of time. Hopefully the developers will, you know, add a few more of these that make it a bit more user friendly. But so I believe this one was set up like this, so that So like I mentioned earlier, the gap makes it so that it has to be within this time to move to the next one. And I don't think I could do it at quicker than 45 milliseconds. So we just raise this up a bit. But the way this one was set up is if I drag this down like this, it's designed so that you can hold a note and then, you know, move around it, which I think is a bit more kind of how it would be sung by the actual choir. This is more their kind of style. So this one's good for doing, you know, doing those kinds of, when the gap is down, you know, it gives you a lot more kind of flexibility if you prefer to do drone notes like. So now let's talk about these little things up here. These are essentially kind of, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm still kind of getting my head around what the numbers do, but yeah, so these are these key switches, I guess. Maybe I got it wrong, but I'm pretty sure. Oh, and I'm changing the one above, that's why. Yeah, so this will change. So it allows you to jump between lanes, I believe. So I still don't know what the numbers mean. I should probably learn that at some point. Let's see if it's in the help. Numbers, 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 numbers. And again, this is one of those things, you know, I just don't know what the numbers underneath it mean. And this is what I was talking about. This is a good example of what I was saying at the beginning, where when I, you know, play with a library, I tend to do it out the box because that's what most people are going to do. That's what I do whenever I get a sample library. If I buy something, I get it and I put it to work. And the ones that I tend to use the most are the ones that just make my life easy on the front panel. So if something looks like it's not going to make sense, you know, lose a bit of the space down at the bottom and add like a little, you know, a little space underneath and tell me what each of these do. You know, we've got a lot of space on the side for the logo. Maybe, you know, we could have spread out these buttons so that we knew exactly what every button does when we look at it, as opposed to, you know, making me figure it out or go to a manual, because I tend not to do that. So these are the library's mod wheel controlled. So if I and we have this thing here that says normal release. So if we which button is it? It's this one, I believe. I'm on the wrong thing again. So if we click this one, you see it says half step down. So this is the release. As you hear, the end of the note goes down a half step. So it goes ka. So what we'll do is we'll go back to the beginning. I keep wanting to drag the actual text. Half step up. So the non-legato, this red one down here, this is pointing in the options. So you have, like, how I said, the gap and the controls. You can have separate controls for non-legato and legato version. So non-legato's the same, just a little bit kind of more aggressive, you know, it doesn't join together. Vibrato, I should probably learn how to turn the vibrato up. I'm not sure which CC this is. It's one of the CCs and it's on my controller, but sounds like it's added on virtually. But in a mix, you'd never notice. So that's pretty cool. And let's take a look. So let's just make this new again. So I think I've pretty much covered everything that this library has. Like this is going to be one of my epic long ones, you know, because it's basically a one patch library. You get one. Oh, by the way, there's the vibrato depth. That's all I had to do was have a look. Oh, wrong button. But I assume you can change this. Or not. So yeah, that CC2 is what changes the vibrato. Yes, when you buy the library, you get one patch, and what it'll do is it'll, you know, I'll just show you. It just loads up. You know, it just loads up a blank page like this, you know. And that's one of the cool things. If you just want the tone of the library, which by itself is, you know, one of the great things about this library. You can just load up syllables, you know, and go with those. You know, maybe up the release time a bit. Let me try just loading. We need like a melody line. Let me find one. This looks quite melody-ish. So let's copy this, which I believe is the strings, and put that with just the air sound. So let's layer that with the string section. Probably doesn't sound like it's doing much. If I take it away, you'll hear that it will take that sound away. Let's make it an R. You could use it just for the R sound, but like the legato doesn't sound. I need to turn off the thingamajig. Hang on, in the options, the overlapping notes. know, just play along with it. So you could use it like a, you know, like a just a single syllable for the sound. Let's see if we got an O. That was a very bad improv, but you get the idea. You know, you could turn it into just a single vowel. So we'll listen to a few of the syllables. Do like a whole library of just... and interesting. So like if I bring this to the end bit. Actually, let's put it with the brass. And come down to this again. Cool little sound. One thing I did notice, and I'll just show you this here, is that the library does seem a little bit off the beat. So if we just put this back in with the whole track. As you can see here, I've had to put it back by 114 milliseconds. If I don't, it sounds like this. It's a little bit kind of behind. So I kind of put it like 100. Let me try 100 back. Another thing worth mentioning is I was trying to be creative. Like I mentioned earlier, the tone of the Bulgarian choir is the major selling point. So in Mac 5, I sampled out just it going just doing the Markebo or whatever it is, the first phrase, and I put it, and I'm using granular synthesis, and I turned it into a pad. Just a pad using the voice, and so like these sounds here. So that way I still get the tone of the library, but you know, I'm doing like my own kind of thing with it. And it's always worth mentioning that, like, you know, just when you get a sample library, you don't have to just keep it in the box. You know, you can, like I did, I bounced that out to audio so that I could manipulate it elsewhere, and that way I still get the tone of the library. Yeah, I keep going back to tone, but like I think it's worth emphasizing that fact that Bulgarian choir is about the tone of the library. So when you're buying the library, you're not just getting the sounds, the syllables, and the wave files. You're getting the tone of that sound, you know, that doesn't exist in any other library. So, you know, make full use of that. You know, you've paid the money for it. Use everything about it. You know, if you the tone of that Bulgarian choir is that otherworldly sound. You know, so you're also buying that on top of you know, just the sounds themselves. So yeah, like all in all, I'm very happy with this library, just because, not just because, but like I'm very happy with the library because you know, there's nothing like this out there. I think there is another library going on now, but this is the first one that comes to mind that actually has the authentic type tone. So like I mentioned, if you go listen to Bulgarian choirs on YouTube, or you go listen to that soundtrack to Alone in the Dark, I think it was a PS3 game, you'll hear this sound and you'll hear how authentic. That's another thing this library does well, dissonance. If you put like a few sounds, you know, like a few notes together, it still sounds pretty good. But yeah, so yeah, all in all, I absolutely love the tone of this library. The UI, not that it doesn't need work. I would appreciate that if it was better explained when you first load it up. Of course, you've got the help section here, and you've got the read the fucking manual. But, you know, like I said, when I get a library, I just boot it up and I go, because I know that's pretty much what most of you guys will do as well. So it's worth showing, you know, how much of a headache you're in for when you get to it. But the things I absolutely love, you know, I'm absolutely loving the fact that you can write your own words. And this feature here is almost ingenious within itself, you know, being able to stretch a certain syllable so that you can, you know, play in a rhythm just by holding down the keys. You know, you can play your chord and it sings back that rhythm. You know, that's like gold, and I hope that more libraries start to do that kind of thing. The things I mentioned that I wish it would do a little bit differently is, like I said, other than the UI, is either come with presets of like bits that work well together, or make it so that when you you know, so when you're changing through words, there's not such a big jump. You know, there's a very kind of clear I don't know if it needs more release triggers or more control over the release, like of the overall phrase. I know you could come in and do each one individually, but if you're on a tight deadline, you know, doing the she. Let's take some of the out of that. You know, you can soften it up, but it's quite fiddly. You know, you have to shift and right click to do it, which is a little bit confusing. This is a contact thing, not their fault, but it's irritating when you go to drag like the top to get a letter and you accidentally do it too low, and that happens, and then you accidentally put the second instrument like above the top one or something, you know. But yeah, that's not their fault. The options, I wish there was a little bit more explanation just looking at it to what it does, which is you know, just a case of you know, maybe even just putting what it does underneath. I know I can go to the help, but you know, I'm not a read the fucking manual type person. Other than that though, it's the pros of this library, I think, way, you know, very much outweigh the cons. The UI, you know, I know it now, so you know, while it was irritating at first, you know, now I know how to use it. It's fine. You know, like the sound of it, the tone of it is way more important to me than the like the sketchiness of, you know, the like I said, because you can throw delays and stuff and hide that fact a bit better. And when you put it up against other instruments like this, It's almost negligible how little you can hear it. So yeah, I love this library. If they're going to do an update, you know, I've very clearly said what I want to do. But yeah, I hope you guys have enjoyed like this little overview of Rhodope. Like I said, very powerful library. If you take the time to sit down and use it, hopefully my techniques of doing the doing the rhythm help you guys. And yeah, I hope to see you all in the next video. So thanks for watching.